Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sampurasun, Sobat Ngariksa. Terima kasih atas perhatian Sobat Ngariksa pada channel kita. Pada episode kali ini saya akan berbincang-bincang dengan seorang peneliti, yaitu Christopher M. Joll, Dr. Christopher M. Joll. Saya biasanya menyapa Pak Chris ya. Beliau adalah seorang peneliti dari Muslim Study Center di Institute of Asian Studies di Chulalongkorn University, Thailand. Dan sekarang Pak Chris sedang ada di Indonesia, berbagi tentang keahliannya, perhatiannya tentang Muslim minority di Thailand ya, di Patani. Kita akan berbincang-bincang dengan beliau. Dan tentu saja Sobat Ngariksa mungkin yang penasaran dengan bagaimana sih manuskrip-manuskrip di Thailand Selatan, di Patani, kita akan simak bersama dengan Pak Chris ya. Selamat siang, halo, Assalamu'alaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Selamat siang is in bahasa Indonesia, of course, to say. How to say it in Thailand? Yeah.
Sawadikap.
Sawadikap. Sawadikap. This is our informal talk, Pak Chris. Thank you for coming to our channel, our program Ngariksa. Have you heard about this channel?
Yes,
Yeah. What
yes.
do you think about Ngariksa?
I like it. I like the vibe. Very chill, very laid back.
How many episodes you watch?
Oh, you're not going to ask that, are you? 3 or
Yeah,
4.
this Ngariksa actually the word of Ngariksa is taken from Sanskrit and then from Sundanese. Ngariksa, pariksa, it means to preserve. So we would like to preserve our past memory, and that's why we meet here and to talk about our past. Not only Indonesian past, but the Southeast Asian past, as you're concerned in Thailand, yeah. First, maybe could you please introduce yourself, who you are, and why you interested to study the Muslim in Patani to our audience,
Yeah,
please.
sure.
Please.
So there's a short version, a long version. The short version is that my wife was born and brought up in Thailand, and so after we had our first child, she pitched something to me. She says, why don't we live in Thailand just for 2 years? You can decide where we live, you can decide where you work. All you have to do is to learn Thai and to live there for 2 years. Now, after 2 years in Thailand, if you don't want to live in Thailand, that's fine. We go to live in New Zealand.
Yeah.
But if you do like living there, let's live there. So I looked for a job, and I got a job. Looked at the teaching jobs, and I got a job in Patani for 2 reasons.
Okay.
This is one was that the cost of living was very, very cheap.
I see.
And the second reason was that it was near the beach.
Compared to the in New Zealand, yeah.
Well, yeah, you don't get paid a lot of money if you're teaching English as a young man.
I see.
So if you've got low rent, you can live. So we shifted into a Muslim community in the middle of town. And that was the community that I based my PhD thesis on. I taught English for 4 years. I got really bored. And then I ended up by doing a PhD at University Kebangsaan in Malaysia. At Alam Tamadun dan Dunia Melayu. And so I lived there, traveling to Malaysia 2 or 3 times a year. I finished my thesis in 2009. I published my book in 2011, and that's how my interest in studying Muslim minorities in Thailand started, by accident or providence, depending on what you
So
believe.
it's already 25 years until now?
I first went there 25 years ago, 2000. Yeah, so I was there when September 11th happened. I watched television with all of my Muslim friends. I was there when the violence started in 2004.
Yeah.
And since leaving, I've come and gone to do research. Yeah, so that's kind of like my second home.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel more at home there than I do in New Zealand, to be honest with you. Yeah.
So when did you leave New Zealand?
2000? Yeah, 2000. Yeah, left New Zealand 2000, and we went back to the pandemic 2020,
Okay.
and then when it was possible for me to travel after the pandemic, 2 or 3 times a year, traveling for work and research.
So Thailand, I mean Patani is your second home now. Why actually did you interested to make a focus on the Muslim minority in Thailand?
Yeah, well, it just happened by accident. We shifted to Patani, and we found a house to rent in a Muslim community by the beach, by the river, and it was close to the old Gota, the old palace. It was where the Masjid Raja is, and because Sandra, she had grown up in Thailand, I went in the local Gada Gopi. I mean, I just started to learn Thai and then Malay, and all of my friends were local Malays. And so eventually I thought, why don't I make this the subject of a PhD?
As an anthropologist, of course, you have to speak local language there, yeah, or Thai language. What's your most interesting experience to when you did anthropological research? Of course, you live with a Muslim minority there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was, so I'm a real anomaly, and I'm not saying that as a source of pride. It's been a tremendous privilege for me to have been able to live there for so many years, and even after I've left, to be able to come and go. So it's not like I've got a PhD at Leiden and I've got 1 year to do my research, and then I collect all my data, and then I write it up, and then I never come back again. That's not been our experience. So when I was initially doing research, it was very, very difficult for me to explain to people that I was now no longer an English teacher, but I was a researcher. No one really understood what that meant. And so, and that made some things harder, but some things easier, because all I did was that I had to travel around, spend time with people, listen carefully to what they were saying, and then when I get home, write it down, and learn those skills of participant observation, of creating paper trails. But after we had left living in Patani, and I shifted to Chiang Mai because our kids needed to go to school, I did a very different type of research, and that was going into rural communities, studying the range of Sufi tariqat that exists amongst rural communities.
What kind of tariqat?
Ahmadiyya Idrisiya in central Thailand, some Qadariya wa Naqshbandiya connections, Shazariya. They are the main orders. Some orders influenced by some Naqshbandi. There's Naqshbandi influences. You look at the way they do zikr, you can see that they're Naqshbandi. They've got Zawiyah operating so a range of tariqat across the country. And that was a very different research experience, because I was going in completely unknown, and I had to spend many weeks visiting, staying with the leaders of these orders in order for them to get to know me. And so that was a very different research experience.
Yes, and that research, I guess, brought you to the broader scholar, I mean broader network, including Indonesia.
That's right.
Because this study of the tarekat Indonesia also very, very popular. One of our scholars, you must know, Professor Azumardi Azra, he did research about the network between Nusantara Ulama and Haramain, through the network, through the tarekat networks. Can you say something about the work of Azumardi Azra?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the first things that I read when I was wanting to understand wider Nusantara context. And so, but I read him at the same time as I read Michael Luffin's first monograph. And then the third book was Michael Luffin's book published by Brill on Sufism and Orientalism. And so there were other things that I read, but those three were the main texts that I read. Now the interesting thing about Azumardi Azra's work is that it's interesting the way that he named his book, because he talked about it being reformed, but it was all about tariqah. And that is very important, because a lot of people wrongly assume that all members of tariqah do is they do zikr and they do salawat and they do suluk, and it completely misses the point that almost all of the major mufti were active members and often leaders of tariqah. So I'm incredibly indebted to those scholars.
One of the important sources of the like Azumardi's research is manuscript, right? Now we are talking about the Patani's Islamic tradition in terms of the text and the manuscript and the ulama there, which is your specialization, right? Can you tell us about the general picture of the Islamic tradition in Patani?
Okay, so the general picture is this, and I will try and keep it short. So there is a history pre-1786 and a history post-1786. 1786 is important because 1786 was the year that the present lineage, the present dynasty in Thailand is called the Chakri dynasty, and we're up to the 10th king in that Chakri dynasty, and the first king, which we call Roning or Rama the First, he, as part of punishing Patani for not assisting the defense of a UTR against Burma, and he came and he sacked the city, and that led to the first of a range of exiles from Patani between 1786 to around the 1838, 1839. So before 1786, there was some strong networks. The hagiography cite Hadrami connections with people in the capital, and you know all the criticisms about Hadrami hagiographies. Everyone who wants to claim to be anyone kind of wants to find, you know, Habib in his lineage. You know, so you know the controversies. So, but there are other networks, other Bondok that existed, other writers of manuscripts before 1786 that were located quite away from the city, which explains the way that they were able to remain operational. And the most important of that is that Bonap Parbot, and we see the manuscripts associated with Bonap Parbot as having Samaniya and Shazaliya connections. So the earlier connections we see are Samaniya and Shazaliya. And then there are other Bondok networks that survived during those decades, and the most important is in present day Yarang, and then later on, way later on in the 1860s, we see more Bondok developing because we have an improvement in relationships between Malays and Kedah and Patani and Siam. We see, for instance, Sheikh Daura Al Fatani coming back to Patani for the first time, maybe the first time. Mecca? That's right, in 1843. And he came back to adopt his grandnephew, and he took his grandnephew back to the Hijaz. He died about 3 years later. But his grandnephew ended up by being one of the most prolific authors. So the scholarship produced by this network in the 19th century, Sheikh Daura Al Fatani is the one of the most influential. 47 dated publications, and we have a number of less important numerically individuals before he passed away in 1847, and we see another round of publications attributed to him that Sheikh Ahmad Al Fatani produced from. So Sheikh Ahmad Al Fatani is 2 generations after Sheikh Daud Al Fatani, and he there's about 70 manuscripts attributed to him.
It's very prolific.
Until 1906, 2 years before he passed away in 1908. So he was remarkable because he was based in the Hijaz, but was co-opted by the Ottomans to run their press, worked a bit in Sir, and then in Istanbul. We have no information about him having visited Patani during this time. So he is a classic example of a member of the Patani Malay diaspora who left and never came back. But then later on, most of the people returned. I hope I've answered your question.
As you mentioned that some of the works of Patani's ulama were printed in Egypt, in Mustafa al-Babi al-Halabi. Does it mean that Patani's works also very influential in the Middle East?
That's a really interesting question, and I am not Superman. I know I look like Superman. I know I fly like Superman, but I don't actually. I've never specifically asked those questions. So I don't think so.
Because when I visited Egypt in Mustafa al-Babi al-Halabi, for example, I found some of the Patani's ulama's work printed there. So I guess it's very popular and influential, at least in Egypt, in Cairo. So another issue I would like to ask you about, your opinion is about what kind of Islamic texts which is most important from Patani, maybe.
Okay, so first of all, we've got a number of examples. It's common, we're discovering this as we analyze, and I just need to mention that that I work collaboratively. We've already established that I'm not Superman, so I work collaboratively, and so I try and use the we rather than the I. There's a large network of local researchers that I've collaborated with over a number of years. The most recent of these is a young scholar by the name of Nuruddin. And we've noticed a number of things. First of all, the importance of some of the earliest kitab being translations of what their teacher has written, or a commentary on what their teacher has written. We also see, so for example, we see Sheikh Daula al-Fatani, there's some material that's connected to the Samaniya networks that he was involved in, and we can assume that
So connected with Abdul Samad.
That's exactly right. And I think I mentioned to you earlier, we recently just discovered that in that book, that he just refers to it as a Tariqat Muhammadiyah, even though we know he was a Samadiyah. So this is a very interesting observation about how this term is used. And we even now we discover Tariqat that only refer to themselves as Tariqat Muhammadiyah. So the other, in terms of content, in terms of subjects, there's been some very important analysis done of this with regard to Sheikh Daud Al-Fatani's work. We've got some very, very basic manuals on the importance of prayer, which Bradley very persuasively argues is an indication about what the needs of the Muslim communities were. For instance, later on in the early 20th century, Sheikh Ahmad Al-Fatani published his series of fatwa called Fatwa Al-Fataniya. Now, a number of people, Nico Capitan being one of them. He has analysed a number of fatwa collections. And why these are important is that these give us an idea of the kind of questions that people were asking. And there's someone interested in so we know that there's other kitab that talk specifically about specific tariqat, the most important of which is the Shatriya that you're familiar with. Others are more general introductions to Usuluddin and Aqidah. A wide range.
I guess from your research, of course, you found that the connection between Patani ulama and Indonesian ulama was very strong, between Syekh Ahmad Daud, Ahmad Patani, and the ulama from Palembang, very strong. From my research, for example, in Shatriya, I think the Shatriya connection between Patani and Aceh, for example, it's very strong. What do you think?
That's Riddell's. That's Riddell's work. That's. I'm not an expert on these specifically Shatriya networks, and I guess I'm also aware of the number of people, the number of Achinese experts that already exist. So I think that the dynamics that I'm more familiar with are, for example, the way in which Sheikh Ahmad Khatib al-Shambasi is one of the students of Sheikh Daud al-Fatani, and the significance of this connection relates to my wider work on Tariqat in Thailand, because you may or may have not heard that in Ayutthaya, about 120 kilometers north of Bangkok, there's actually a very thriving Qadriya community that whose silsila is related directly to Sheikh Ahmad Khatib al-Shambasi, because the person who spread the Qadriya wa Naqshbandiya from the Hijaz at the late 19th century was a Muslim from Ayutthaya. At a time in Ayutthaya when all the Muslims there were Malay speaking, they were second or third generation descendants of Malay prisoners of war relocated there. And so we see the student of Sheikh Daud al-Fatani, Sheikh Ahmad Khatib al-Shambasi, inducting Malay students from central Thailand who spread the Qadriya wa Naqshbandiya there. And that's just one of the many reasons why we need to pay attention to these these student-teacher connections, and not only one generation, but going through the generations, which of the second generation students became the teachers of third generation students.
Wow,
fascinating.
Fascinating. Your wide knowledge about the Patani, about ulama Patani ulama, about their works. Now I know such knowledge brought you to a project, namely MITBB.
It's a terrible name, isn't it?
The Muslims in Thailand Bibliography and Biography.
Yeah, the Muslims in Thailand bibliography and biography project. So
yeah, could you tell us about the project?
Yeah, I'd be very happy to do that, and it's great to be able to share this very humble project that we've done on a shoestring, as we like to say in New Zealand, to do it on a smell of an oily rag. So I don't have any petrol, but if I have an oily rag, I can wave it over my car and it will still go. So, and you know, it's been a great project to do. And I don't know what your experience is, but actually some of the best projects and the most productive projects are often the projects that you do with the least funding or with no funding, and you can do whatever you like. So I have been maintaining for a number of years a bibliography of publications related to Muslims in Thailand. So that's the bibliography part. What we've done is we've developed more topical bibliographies to help researchers, including yourselves, and we've also provided an RIS file that people can download and use in their bibliographies software. And then what we've also done is something which may be a little cheeky or controversial. We've made available, not all, but many of the items in the bibliography on the Google Drive. So you just click on a button, it'll take you to the page, and you can download articles that are relevant to your interests.
Okay. This is very fantastic tool for researchers, I think, because as far as I know, there is no such database ever developed relating to Patani, right?
Yeah, including the Google Drive is a bit cheeky. So let's just see if I get a call from a very wealthy publisher with a very expensive lawyer. But I just think the ethical problems that I have with scholars, the large number of students and researchers studying and working in low resource institutions, the ethical problem I have at preventing those people having access to this sort of stuff is more of a concern to me than the odd publisher missing out on a few royalties.
Okay, wonderful. I have last question, actually, Chris, about the possibility of preserving and digitizing manuscript. We talk about the possibility of extending the project of digitizing manuscript in southern Thailand. As you know that we have a program, DREAMSy, Digital Repository of Endangered and Effective in Southeast Asia. We try to preserve our cultural heritage in Southeast Asia through digitizing the manuscript. So is there a possibility, please tell to the audience, to have a mission there? Because it's not easy access to southern Thailand sometimes.
Okay, so I'll answer that question, but first I want to just tell this story. When I started to do this research on Tadika, no one had done this research before. A whole pile of Muslim friends of mine looked at me and says, you can't do it. They don't exist anymore. Or if they do, it's like a secret society. So it is remarkable what happens when over a number of years you develop relationships with people that share your interests. And so I told this to you already, but
building the trust,
we're just getting on people's radars, or letting them understand that within so let's just say we've got a 100-page handwritten manuscript. How long would it take your team to digitize that? How many minutes would it take your team to digitize it?
100 minutes?
Oh, no. 100-page handwritten manuscript. 20 minutes? 30 minutes? Okay. So you explain to them, all we need is 20 minutes. And we're not going to take the manuscript from your house.
Yes,
you can turn all the pages if you're concerned about that. It'll take us 20 minutes, and when we're done, We're going to produce a PDF and we will send it to you.
Yes.
And you can send it to anyone you like.
More
You can
preserved.
go and take it to a shop and you can print it off and you can give it away. You can do it you can do whatever you like, because this is yours.
Yes.
So just yesterday, no, 2 days ago, I shouldn't exaggerate, I had a guy saying, hey, listen, so he's a friend from Kelantan. You know, the great-great-great-grandson of the famous Mufti Wan Musa has just contacted him. He's got 2 handwritten kitab. One is an Arabic it's in Arabic, and it's of a kitab written by the famous Sheikh Ahmad ibn Idris. And there's another one which is 100 pages, and it contains up to 100 smaller kitab, again in Arabic. And he just says the guy is happy for you to digitize it.
Okay,
And he says there was another person in Malaysia who wanted to take the manuscript and keep it in it. So he
No way.
And the guy was angry. He says, no way.
Yeah, of course.
So, and we are all the time hearing from people who know us and what we do, that they've gone to this bondok, and then in the corner of the bondok, there is a cupboard, and it's got a whole pile of manuscripts, and some of them have been eaten by termites. We are not hearing this every week. That would be exaggerating, but we are regularly hearing of people who know that there's things that need to be digitized, and this needs to happen soon.
Yes.
So there's piles of piles of things.
We hope to go there with you, of course,
Inshallah.
next year, inshallah, to preserve the cultural heritage and to do research on them. Oh, I remember that you mentioned in our conversation that you're impressed of the development of philological studies in Indonesia.
Yes.
Can you just
Well,
tell
I
us,
mean, it's just a number
compared to the philologists in other areas?
Well, I'm not going to be unkind about other places, but this is just my analysis. Okay, this is my analysis. It's just a numbers game. That Indonesia has got such a large, not only a large population, but how many Islamic universities are in Indonesia? I mean, you know the answer to that question. So it's just a numbers game. When you've got this number of students, and these have been formed and trained and developed and nurtured in this large number, you've just got and the strength in most parts of the country with Kitab Kuning, and the legacy of the strong traditionalist and neo-traditionalist organizations such as NU, there's just, if someone held a gun to my head and said, where would you go for help? It would be to come to Indonesia. And that's not to say that other people elsewhere might not be able to help, but it's just purely a numbers game. So that's about quantity of students, quantity of institutions. But I've consistently been impressed by the quality of the Indonesian, and particularly the young Indonesian scholars. I come to a university in Indonesia, I'll speak to 100 people. And there's other parts of the region I'll go to, and there may be 10 or 20.
If we read an article by Anthony Reid, for example, the late Anthony Reid, he said in his article that now the button of the philological studies now is in Indonesia.
But that's also related to the wider context of scholarship. It's, you know, there was a time, there were decades in which research was based on colonial archives collected by a range of philologists, missionaries, government officials, some of whom bought private collections. We know all those stories, but that's not today. And the other thing is that we need to get beyond studying the things that have already been done. When we talked earlier, I kind of asked someone to guess how many studies of Hamza al-Fansuri, you know, how many studies of Nuruddin Al-Raniri. So we just need to stop doing stuff that's already been done. And there's a number of remarkable things that happen when you leave the office and you leave home and you hit the road and you sit down and you get to know people and you just ask, listen, do you know anyone who's got materials like this? Would you be willing for me? Would you be willing would you mention to that person that I'd like to come again? And you know, you go further when you go slower. Because these collections aren't going to go away. One of the saddest things that happen is when you come to Bondok and there's been a fire, and then the whole archive is gone. You know, that's the most tragic thing. When you come across, you know, you say, have you got any materials? And often the Babur, he'll look down, he'll just say, during the time of my father-in-law, it was burnt, we've got no records. And that's tragic.
Thank you so much, Chris, for our conversation. We hope that our young scholars can follow our conversation and interested to do research, maybe.
Tell them to come. Tell them to get hold of us.
Could you say about something for our young researchers, please? Your message to...
Should I talk to this camera?
Yes.
Okay, camera, listen, please. You know, there's so much work that needs to be done. And all you need is the right attitude. You don't have to be a Superman. It's normal for you not to have the skills that you need to do the research that you want to do. But attitude is more important than skills. You just have to be willing to work hard and to practice these skills and to have fun. So that's my pitch. So come to Patani.
Come to Patani. Thank you. Attitude is more important than skill. It's nice words today. Thank you, Chris. Actually, in our Ngariksa, in the end of our conversation, we have specific salam to our audience. But in bahasa Indonesia, mari kita menatap masa depan dengan merawat masa silam. It's I guess it's difficult for you to say. I would invite you to say. Actually,
I speak a local dialect.
Actually, these words mean that let's preserve our past. To look at our future.
I mean, that is a very good.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, Sobat Ngariksa. Sobat Ngariksa, kita sudah bercakap-cakap, berbincang-bincang dengan Pak Chris, Christopher Joll. Mudah-mudahan bermanfaat untuk para peneliti, para peminat manuskrip khususnya, dan juga untuk kajian tentang budaya Muslim minoritas di Patani, di Thailand Selatan. Mari kita lanjutkan dengan riset berikutnya. Mungkin nanti di Brimsi atau di Ngariksa kita akan datang ke sana barangkali untuk melakukan riset bersama dengan Pak Chris. Sobat Ngariksa, mari kita menatap masa depan dengan merawat masa silam. Salam Ngariksa. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Chris.
Very good. Thank you very much. It was fun.